I don't think that I ever had any encounter or any reason to even think about bats growing up. Nature's always been there somewhere in my childhood. One of my memories growing up is of me just thinking about forests. If you meet Ben in the field, he's kind of one of the best people to be in the field with. Bats are heavily understudied in Nigeria. Poorly known, poorly studied. We're starting to grow that interest now. I mean, because of some of the successes we've had, Ben and I, it seems like we've signaled to people, hey, bats are cool creatures, I really believe that if we were to conduct a lot more studies in the field, we're really going to start to understand how our bats are doing in the wild. My research focuses on why bats differ across the landscape. So if you're at the top of the mountain and at the base, different bat species. Why? I was always fascinated by just, being able to climb up mountains. It felt like its own kind of vacation, even though bat research can never be considered a vacation. Afi Mountain itself is actually perhaps one of the steepest mountains kind of in the area. And that makes it really difficult to climb. This is not a walk in the park.
I can walk. Oh yeah. All right. Move on.
What's really striking about these areas is the landscape is always spectacular. Lots of just terrific views of, sometimes it's the cloud floating over the mountain or floating on the side of it, and it's like really just visually stimulating. It feels like the mountain wants to reward you. Caves are valuable as shelters for bats, where they will also find mates and also raise their young. Bats are shy. They are shy creatures. A good number of species would not want to be around humans or even other species.
So we're trying to survey these caves and know the type of bats that are in this cave.
So this is an ultrasound bat detector. What it does is it listens to the sounds that bats make and it detects it. So it's ultrasound because bats echolocate at a very high frequency, so human beings can't hear bats.
It's more efficient to navigate with ultrasound, echolocation. So that's what this detector is able to pick up. When they fly, they emit sound, and the reflection of that sound, they analyze it and are able to know what object is in front of them, the kind of object. And this is how they forage, this is how they feed, catch insects at mid-flight. It's a very, very efficient system.
Now, bats roosting in caves are often threatened by lots of things. When my field team and I first discovered a really rare species, the short-tailed bat, that had not been seen in the wild for 45 years, it was suddenly, we've got this huge responsibility now that we have to take on board. You encounter a rare species, you've got to save it, you've got that responsibility to protect it. The biggest turning point in my career was being told that there was a field course. It was just the big shift I needed in my career, because that's where I fell in love with bats. Myself and a friend, the first time we went to the field, it was quite disastrous. We really did not get along. At the end of that field trip, he simply just told me, look, I can't do this. And I'm like, well, you can't abandon me in the middle of a project. So next time he calls me up and says, there's this guy, he's a friend. And then he basically just introduced us.
I was very, very sure. And we work perfectly together. We were best of friends, actually, before we started dating. The bat couple, if anything, it's cool for me. It's just another way of advertising the bats and making bats look more cool. People could find love with bats. And that gives me some kind of fulfillment. And of course, we are a very cool couple, so it's like a free advert for the bats.
What we now know is that the bat is threatened by two primary human-induced threats, one of which is wildfires. And of course, under climate change, fires have become even more intense and more frequent. The second threat to this tiny bat species that hadn't been seen in the last 45 years is cave disturbance.
The perception about bats in Nigeria and the rest of Africa is a bit complex, because in one breath, most people think bats are evil and witches. In another breath, they eat them. Where we are right now, bats are hunted in their thousands, sometimes up to 4,000 individuals in one single cave. In this community, for example, they hunt bats because they like it. It's the meat. So you then have to provide things like alternative livelihood that can bring money to the community and also offer them alternative.
Bat studies and conservation is very challenging because, of course, bats are nocturnal. So because of that, you have to most times walk all night. So it's a very exciting but challenging kind of research to do.
You know, you're literally working day and night. At night, you trap bats, you process them, you identify them, what species they are, take lots of measurements, you know, the length of the forearm, the length of the legs, size of the head, you know, take photos and record the echolocation calls that they make. You know, so it can be quite involving. So all of this you do at night because that's when bats are active, right? They're nocturnal.
There are times you want to give up. You tend to think, are we just here, like somebody said, documenting the end? Because when we got into bat research and bat conservation, we couldn't find people to look up to in Nigeria and West Africa. It was very difficult getting materials and getting mentored. So this is what we want the next generation of enthusiastic bat researchers to avoid, not to go through. We want to be remembered as the couple who are raising West African students and bat conservationists.
To study bats, you first need to know where they are and what they are. And then you start to study other things like what do they eat? How do they find what they eat? Does one species use one mechanism apart from the other? What plants do they pollinate or disperse? Lots and lots of interesting things that we haven't discovered about bats yet. So these discoveries that we've made here, you know, finding a rare small population of the short-tailed bat, or discovering 10 bat species that are new to Nigeria, that is just the beginning. We're barely scratching the surface. So much to find out about bats.
The real name? Got it triggered.
It is a busy day in almost the heart of Nairobi. Yeah, and it's a city that I quite love. I keep trying to escape it and live elsewhere, then I come back because it has a charm to it, and I think it keeps me sharp. But we are on Jogoo Road, which leads to the Greater Eastlands area, which is where two of our libraries are located. Thank you. Is she in here? Ah, there you are, hiding behind the shelf. Hey. Hello.
Hi.
How are you? How are you?
Good. Oh.
Do you remember what this space looked like the first time we saw it all those years ago?
I'm trying to. It was stuck full of old, broken furniture.
Yeah.
Lots of it.
All the way to the ceiling.
All the way stacked up, all the way to the ceiling. We can see the holes now more.
Yeah. It used to be the children's section, and it will likely continue to be the children's section when we renovate it. So picture vibrant colors, lots of children's books, comfy furniture, and just activity and all of that good stuff in the future. A lot of the art that was in the building is original to 1931 when it was put here, and some of the stuff that we would like to celebrate, but also juxtapose with more contemporary African art. So you'll see a lot of these guys around the building, and the furniture as well, all original. And in case you're wondering who the library was named after, that is the man, Sir William Northrop Macmillan. He was an American railway millionaire who this library is built for.
It's a library that's had a certain kind of history for 90 years. What could the next 90 look like?
I've never seen this before. Every day you discover a new thing in this library. Solanas, fast and permanently successful coffee. Fast.
And it always laced with some Christendom.
Yeah, so many questions.
I've never seen this
I've
before.
never seen it.
You cannot wish away that it is a colonial era library, that it did not allow Black people access for almost 30 years after it was built. Those are facts. But it's also a fact that it's located in Nairobi, and we're going to make it ours. The Africana Room. So welcome to the Africana Room. At some point in time, in the early days of this library, this was one of the most precious collections of Africana material.
The definition of Africana then was slightly different.
Very
from what it is
different.
now. So
Very different.
So it's like kind of like books by Africans.
Right.
But in
This
this,
was
it's more like books about.
about Africa itself,
Yeah.
as in geographically, and about Africans. Very influenced, obviously, the collection itself by the time. So it would be very anthropological in nature, very kind of like, let's study the Africans and their biology, and their eating habits and all of these things. So it was, the African as an object. Some of the more disturbing material that we found here includes like a ledger of money that was paid to former slave owners. I think in West Africa. Was it Ghana?
Ghana.
It was Ghana. So the collection itself reflected the sort of ideology of the time. It would be very inspired by the British Empire, and their thoughts around civilizing the natives.
Yep. And I think we definitely want to maintain the spirit of this room. So in the future Macmillan, this will definitely be where we house our new Africana collection.
Yeah.
It's probably going to be bigger. So yeah, we definitely don't want to erase anyone, even if the people who tried to erase us, we won't erase them back. We'll try and create balance and try and present as many versions of this history as we can.
Looking at the archives that we have, sometimes quite heartbreaking to look at. But what is clear is that we've got to look at this thing in the eye. It's part of our history, but I think not confronting it is not the thing to do either. So we can choose how we want to confront it, and how we want to move forward from there. And I think part of the work that we're doing is a response to that. Good afternoon from Nairobi, Kenya. My name is Angele Wachuke. I'm a founder and managing trustee at Book Bunka, where we restore public libraries in Nairobi. Today, we are recording season 2 of our podcast, A Palace for the People. And the particular episodes that we're looking at is in keeping with what our podcast does, which is take items, archive items, other significant items that we are finding in the library as part of our restoration work, and using these to tell a story about Kenya's history and about the library itself. We have found insignia in the library basement from Italian regiments and Italian prisoners of war who were kept here during World War II by the British colonial government. And it says, Mechanized Black Shirt Battalion.
Black shirt? Like Mussolini black shirt?
Yeah.
What? Okay.
Yeah. The second episode that we are recording is looking at the renaming of places and also asking the question if Macmillan Memorial Library should be renamed, and if so, what it will be renamed into. We don't even know what a new name might be.
Yeah, we don't. But it's also because it's not up to us. We must have public participation to make sure that the name eventually represents what people actually want.
Yes, we
so
have.
Let's do it.
Good idea. Let's take this one to the Twitter streets. Our handle is @thebookbank. Tweet us and let us know what you think the library should be renamed to.
Let us know.
This neighborhood itself was built by Italian prisoners of war in the 1940s. So this is Kaloleni Library. It was our first refurbishment project in 2020. We've made huge improvements here. It used to look very, very different. Morning, Sasa. But when we restored this library, we were very mindful of the fact that there are a lot of children that use it. So we dedicated it to use by children. Where? Happy New Year. This is the librarian, Teresa Sasa. That's part of our team over there. They are cataloging some of the new book collections that we have so that we can add them to the collection. There'll always be urgent things that we have to put our resources into as a country. But how we see ourselves also really matters because it also influences how we do everything else. So if we see ourselves as a people with a certain kind of history that influences how we think of ourselves, then, and that influences everything else that we do in life. Public libraries are great equalizers, and if they can be places where people's sense of themselves is heightened and is developed, and you have resources going towards that, I think we'd find that we become better people.
So having seen what the end of this process looks like, there's so much we've done, but also so much. It feels like you've only literally not even scratched the surface, like you've just rubbed the surface. So I think the feeling is overwhelmed, maybe. The challenge is exciting, but it's also overwhelming.
It's a mammoth task.
Yeah.
But you think about the potential impact on people today and in the future, and that makes it very exciting.